The smell of stale coffee and disinfectant hung heavy in the air, a familiar, sickening blend. Dr. Eris Thorne watched, jaw clenched, as the security guard, a burly man named Frank, gently but firmly guided the old veteran towards the exit. "Sir, I understand you're not feeling well, but we need you to check in at admissions first." "Policy." The veteran, Elias Vance, a gaunt man with eyes that held the ghosts of forgotten battlefields, swayed. A dark, spreading stain bloomed on the leg of his threadbare trousers, a telltale sign of uncontrolled bleeding from a diabetic ulcer. "Please," Eli rasped, his voice a dry whisper, I need a moment." "My leg." Frank glanced at the stain, then at the intake desk where Ms. Evelyn Hayes, the new hospital administrator, stood, arms crossed, her gaze like chipped ice. "Procedure, Frank," she clipped, her voice carrying across the sterile waiting room. "No patient enters the treatment area without full registration and insurance verification. You know the rules." Eris moved before he could think, a primal surge of fury overriding his professional composure. "He's bleeding, Ms. Hayes. Arterial, by the look of it. He doesn't have a moment to spare for your damn paperwork." Freedom's Gate Memorial Hospital, once a pillar of Harmony Falls, Ohio, had become a battleground. For 30 years, it had served the working-class community, a place where the steel mill workers and their families, the veterans from nearby Fort Bragg, could find care without question. But 2 years ago, Vanguard Health Group had bought it, rebranding it with a cold, corporate efficiency that bled the soul out of its hallways. Profit margins replaced patient welfare. Bedside manner was secondary to billing codes. And the new patient processing protocol, championed by Ms. Evelyn Hayes, was its most egregious symptom. Every patient, no matter their distress, had to be fully processed, insurance verified, and forms signed before a single four could be started, a single wound stitched. Eris Thorne, barely 5 years out of medical school, had joined Freedom's Gate precisely because of its reputation for compassionate care. His grandfather, a Korean War vet, had died in a VA hospital waiting room, a victim of bureaucratic delays. Eris had vowed then that he would be different. He was already on thin ice with Hayes, having received 2 written warnings for prioritizing urgent care over paperwork. One more strike and his nascent career would be over. But as he looked at Eli Vance, the man's face pale and slick with sweat, the choice wasn't a choice at all. It was an instinct, a calling. "Get him to Trauma Bay 2 now." Eris barked, his voice cutting through the hushed waiting room. He ignored Hayes's indignant squawk, the flicker of surprise in Frank's eyes. He supported Eli, the man's weight surprisingly light, a testament to his emaciated state. The duffel bag, a faded, patched army issue, slipped from Eli's grip and thudded softly to the linoleum. Eris didn't stop. He couldn't. Inside the bay, the air hummed with the controlled chaos Eris thrived on. "Diabetic foot ulcer, severe, possible arterial involvement," he rattled off to the attending nurse, Maria, who was already pulling on gloves. "Prep for immediate debridement and vascular consult. Get a full blood panel, stat." Ms. Hayes appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of furious calm. "Dr. Thorne, you are in direct violation of hospital policy. This patient has not been registered. We have no insurance information. This is a flagrant disregard for protocol." Eris didn't even turn. He was already examining Eli's leg, the wound a raw, angry maw. "Then write me up, Ms. Hayes," he said, his voice low and steady, "because I'm not letting this man bleed out on my watch while you shuffle papers. My oath is to my patients, not your profit margins." A tense silence filled the bay, broken only by the rhythmic beep of the monitor and the quiet clink of instruments. Maria, her eyes meeting Eris's in a silent pact, continued her work. Dr. Chin, the senior surgeon, arrived, his gaze sweeping over the scene. "What do we have, Eris?" he asked, ignoring Hayes entirely. Eris gave a concise, professional report. Chin nodded, his face grim. "Good call, Thorne. Another 10 minutes and we'd be talking about amputation or worse." The surgery was long, delicate. Eli Vance had been living on the streets for years, his diabetes uncontrolled, his body a roadmap of neglect. Eris assisted, his hands steady, his mind a whirlwind of anger and determination. He thought of his grandfather, of the quiet pride in his eyes when he spoke of his service and the quiet despair when he spoke of the care he couldn't get. This was more than just a patient, this was a stand. When Eli was finally stable, wheeled out to recovery, his eyes fluttered open. He looked at Eris, a faint, grateful smile touching his lips. You didn't let them," he whispered, his voice stronger now. "Thank you, son." Eris squeezed his hand. "Just rest, Eli. You're safe now." But Eris knew his own safety was gone. An hour later, he was in Ms. Hayes's office, Dr. Chin conspicuously absent. Dr. Thorne, Hayes began, her voice devoid of emotion. Your actions tonight constitute a third and final violation of Vanguard Health Group's patient processing protocols. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately. Eris felt a cold dread, but also a strange sense of liberation. I saved a man's life, Miss Hayes. You jeopardized the hospital's financial standing and exposed us to significant liability, she countered. Our protocols are in place to protect the institution and, by extension, all our patients. By letting them die in the waiting room? Eris shot back, his voice rising. Is that the Vanguard way? Because it sure as hell isn't the doctor's way. He walked out, leaving the termination papers on her pristine desk, his scrubs still stained with Eli Vance's blood. He was unemployed, but he was not broken. Word spread like wildfire. Not just through the hospital where nurses and residents whispered in break rooms, but into the community. Sarah Jenkins, a fellow resident who had always admired Eris's idealism, started an anonymous online forum gathering stories of Vanguard's policy failures. The anecdotal evidence was horrifying: delayed treatments, worsening conditions, even preventable deaths. Eris did what any good doctor would do, Sarah posted. He put a human life before a corporate ledger. And they fired him for it. The story reached the ears of Harmony Falls Local News, a small but feisty independent station. They picked up on the homeless vet denied care angle and the firing of the young doctor who dared to intervene. That's when the ripple turned into a wave. Elias Vance, still recovering, saw the news from his hospital bed. He asked Maria, the nurse, to contact his old unit. He hadn't spoken to them in years, lost to the shadows of his trauma. But some bonds never truly break. Within days, Eli's story had exploded. He wasn't just a homeless vet, he was Elias Vance, a decorated Army Ranger, Purple Heart recipient, Bronze Star with Valor. His quiet dignity, his refusal to complain even as he bled out, resonated deeply. The duffel bag, which Eris had left by his bedside, contained not just old service records but a small, intricately carved wooden bird, a gift from a child in a war-torn village, a reminder of the humanity he had fought to protect. This small, unassuming object became a symbol picked up by local news. The Harmony Falls Veterans Association, a tight-knit community of former service members, organized a protest. Not a loud, angry one, but a silent vigil. Dozens of veterans, many in their old uniforms, stood at attention outside Freedom's Gate, forming a solemn, unmoving line. They held signs: "Honor our vets, not your profits, doctors save lives, bureaucrats kill." Eli Vance, now strong enough to be in a wheelchair, was wheeled out to join them, the worn duffel bag clutched in his lap. Congressman Marcus "Mac" Jones, a former Marine himself, heard the news. He flew to Harmony Falls. Standing among the silent veterans, he addressed the gathered media. Dr. Eris Thorne represents the best of American healthcare, he declared, his voice booming. His willingness to put patient care above bureaucratic concerns is exactly what we need in our medical system, especially when it comes to caring for our veterans. His presence elevated the local story to a national political issue. Inside Freedom's Gate, Ms. Hayes was panicking. Donations were drying up. Patient numbers were dropping. The hospital's reputation was in tatters. The board of directors, an assembly of local business leaders, and a few long-serving medical professionals called an emergency meeting. Dr. Eleanor Vance, the board chairman, a retired Navy surgeon with a formidable reputation, chaired the meeting. She had been observing the unfolding crisis with growing dismay. "We need to acknowledge that our protocols have created an untenable situation," Dr. Vance stated, her voice firm. "We are losing the trust of this community, and rightfully so. The image of our veterans standing in silent protest outside our doors because we chose paperwork over a human life is a stain we cannot afford." Meanwhile, Eris, working with attorneys from the Ohio Medical Association, prepared for a long legal battle. He felt the weight of expectation from the nurses and the veteran community. Sarah, his fellow resident, kept sending him anonymous data, building a formidable case against Vanguard's policies. "You started this, Eris," she told him. "You have to finish it." Despite the overwhelming support, Eris wrestled with doubt. The hospital was suffering, patients were potentially being impacted by the staff shortages due to the unofficial protest. "Maybe I should have just followed the protocol," he confided to Sarah one night. "Look at the chaos this has caused." Sarah's response was immediate and fierce. "You saved a man's life, Eris. And you've started a conversation that needed to happen. Don't let them make you feel guilty for doing the right thing." The climactic moment came in the hospital lobby. Hundreds of people were gathered: veterans, nurses, community members, media. Ms. Hayes, accompanied by a grim-faced Dr. Eleanor Vance, approached Eris. The tension was palpable. "Dr. Thorne," Hayes began, her voice strained. The board would like to discuss your situation privately. Eris, surrounded by the silent, watchful crowd, shook his head. Ms. Hayes, he replied, his voice clear and resonant, anything you have to say to me can be said in front of these people. They deserve to hear it. Hayes faltered. Her carefully prepared remarks about policy and liability sounded hollow in the face of the crowd's palpable support. Then, Eli Vance, pushed forward in his wheelchair, spoke. Sir, your policy would have killed me, he said, his voice surprisingly strong. Dr. Thorne saved my life by ignoring your policy. How do you justify that? Hayes stammered, unable to provide a coherent answer. It was Dr. Eleanor Vance who stepped forward then. Her military bearing commanded immediate attention. I want to personally apologize to Dr. Thorne and to Mr. Vance for the way this situation has been handled, she announced, her voice carrying across the lobby. A wave of surprise rippled through the crowd. After reviewing the circumstances, it's clear that Dr. Thorne made the correct medical decision and should be commended, not punished. A cheer erupted, quickly hushed by the solemn presence of the veterans. Dr. Vance, Eris responded, I appreciate your apology, but I want to make sure no other doctor or nurse faces this situation. We need to change the policies that created this conflict in the first place. Dr. Vance nodded. You're absolutely right. Effective immediately, we are suspending the current patient processing protocol. We are forming a new committee with significant input from our medical staff and the community to develop policies that prioritize patient care above all else while maintaining appropriate oversight. She paused, looking directly at Eris. And Dr. Thorne, we would like to offer you immediate reinstatement with a promotion to Chief of Emergency Services and a formal apology from Vanguard Health Group. The lobby erupted. Nurses cheered, veterans clapped, cameras flashed. Eris accepted, but he wasn't finished. This isn't just about me, he told the celebrating crowd. This is about every healthcare worker forced to choose between following rules and saving lives. Today, we've shown that patient care must always come first. The veterans, led by Congressman Jones, rendered a formal salute to Eris, a profound gesture of respect. Eli Vance, tears in his eyes, reached out and clasped Eris's hand. You're a good man, son, he said, his voice thick with emotion. A real hero. The Eli Vance protocol became a national model, emphasizing immediate triage and treatment for critical cases with administrative processes following, not preceding, life-saving care. Freedom's Gate Memorial Hospital, under Eris's leadership in the ER and Dr. Eleanor Vance's guidance on the board, reclaimed its soul. Staff morale soared and patient satisfaction improved dramatically. The small, hand-carved wooden bird from Eli's duffel bag was enshrined in a display case in the newly renamed Elias Vance Emergency Wing, a silent, powerful reminder of the human cost of bureaucracy. 5 years later, Eris Thorne, now a nationally recognized advocate for patient-first healthcare, stood in the Elias Vance Emergency Wing. He watched a new generation of doctors and nurses move with confidence, their compassion unburdened by fear of punitive policies. The protocols were different now. Humane. Effective. He often thought of Eli, who had fully recovered and become a vocal advocate for homeless veterans. Sometimes, Eris reflected, watching his staff save another life, the most important rule to break is the one that prevents you from helping others. True healthcare happens when we remember that behind every policy and protocol is a human being who deserves compassion, dignity, and the very best care we can provide. And sometimes it takes a quiet veteran and a defiant young doctor to remind an entire system of that simple truth.